everybody. My name is Tim Michael, and welcome to the Artisan Central podcast, the podcast that looks for the art in everything. Today is going to be a very interesting topic that is near and not so dear to all of our hearts, and that's the idea of rejection. Before we get started with today's show, I just wanted to send you guys all a personal hello and thank you for all of your support. Whether you listen to the Artisan Central podcast or you listen to our midweek show Behind the Easel, thank you so much for spending time with me all week long as we make different podcasts and talk about different things that have to do with art, technology, just anything that comes to mind. And like we say, we're looking for the art in everything. I'm trying to find every single niche that someone could be involved in. Think about everything around you, every little device that you use. There was an artist who was involved in creating a concept for the microphone that I use in front of me, or even the pair of sunglasses I wear around. Everyone, there are artists involved in everything, and not only the artists, but also the people who do the programming, the people who are the hardware specialists who create these items. Every single thing you look at has a designer, has a creator, and has important people behind it so it can sell and so it becomes a product that we can use. And that's what the show's all about. So, of course, our ultimate goal is not just to reach out to the artist, not just to reach out to the musician, but to reach out to everybody. And that's why we talk about so many different forms of art. I had a really fun time this past weekend. I was working a shift out at the local resorts that we have out here, drawing caricatures. It was a lot of fun. And I had someone come up and ask me, and say, like everyone that comes up behind me, wow, I wish I could draw. I wish I could be artistic. I don't feel artistic. And many times, it gets me right on top of my soapbox, and it is so much fun to share with people my thought on this idea of being artistic, because when they walk away, they usually walk away with a smile on their face. And I hope it's because they see something new in themselves that they didn't before. And I talk about this to my wife all the time. And one of the things that everyone assumes is that artists are just awesome from the start. You know, I've had last night, actually, I worked a late night shift at the resorts. And someone said, so were you born with this gift? It is really hard to think of that as a serious question, because you kind of think that everyone should expect this, but not everyone does. Everything requires practice and time. And when it comes down to it, your priorities, it's not that you can't draw, it's that your priorities in your own heart and in your own mind are not set to train yourself to do those things. You can be whoever and whatever you want to be if you understand that you just need to align your priorities to get you to that final destination. And that's what I tell everybody. And not only that, I tell them, you might not be artistic by drawing on paper, but are you organized? Do you keep your house clean better than anyone else in your family? Do you handle the bills? Do you handle the finances? Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you find yourself putting things in a certain way in your house because that's how you like it? All of that, in my personal instinct, in my personal thought, is a form of art. And I think that's really cool. When I look around the house and I see what my wife has done to decorate the house, in her mind, it's just decorating the house. To me, it's a form of art coming out of her. And our house looks beautiful because of the effort she puts into everything she does. This is an ongoing topic that I talk to everyone about. It's my soapbox. I would love to go to TED Talks and talk about this on stage. It is just so cool to think about it in that aspect, that everyone is artistic, everyone has the ability to be artistic in the way they want, just so they set their priorities. Usually 9 times out of 10, I'll ask someone, when was the last time you drew? When they come to me and they say, wow, I wish I was artistic like that. And they usually, I almost said autistic. I think there's a form of autism in each one of us, but still, when people come to me and say, I wish I was artistic like that, and I ask them, so when was the last time you drew? 9 times out of 10, they say, wow, probably not for like 10 years or something. There's good reason you're not good at being an artist, because that's not your priorities. Oh, you like watching the football games. Oh, you feel like you need to take care of the finances, take care of your kids, do this, do that, do this, do that. Everything that separates you from art. If you had a true, honest-to-goodness desire to want to draw, you will fight to get to that point. I wasn't always a caricaturist. I could draw pictures, I could draw cartoons, but it was only until I set my mind and my heart on the priority to want to learn to draw caricatures that I began to understand the theories behind drawing caricatures. That's it. So that's 6 minutes of saying hi, how do you do, and giving you one or two of my soapboxes. And some of the stuff that we're going to talk about next is going to be based on a lot of what we're talking about here. So you'll see in just a minute. Now, today's going to be a little different than we usually do because there aren't really many new questions on YouTube right now. And as you guys know, usually we have a YouTube question and answer time. The only thing that we have is a comment from Punami Kar, if I said your name correctly, I hope so, posted 4 days ago. And he says, "Hey Tim, amazing tutorial, but eyeballs are actually a very desaturated skin tone, so you should not take the color picker all the way to the left." That was in regards to Tim's color theory according to Tim. So keep that in mind if you're going through and working on some of your projects. Test that theory. I have yet to test that theory. And I know 9 times out of 10, everyone that I know who draws cartoons usually draws white eyes. So if you're a cartoonist, might not be something that's that important to you. But if you're a realism artist, then these are all things that you need to keep in mind. And I'll be honest with you, take everything with a grain of salt and come up with your own technique. That's the only thing I would suggest. So saying that, that's really the only comments that we've had in the past week, and that's totally okay. We'll have a new video up, hopefully by the end of today, with a brand new piece of artwork for you guys with a nice little talk through. I hope that you enjoy it. And then also remember, you can support me if you want more videos on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TimMichaelArts. You can go to patreon.com/TimMichaelArts and support me. 50 cents, $1 for every time I make a new video. That would be excellent. And remember, you can set your limits. I really need your support. If you want to see more great content, I need you guys to help me out and give me some financial support so we can keep pushing forward. Thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and get into our third segment, since we're kind of skipping segment number 2, and get right into our conversation about rejection. So obviously you guys know that there are many different kinds of rejection. When your girlfriend or boyfriend breaks up with you, when you go to try to hang out with what is supposed to be your friends and they put you down because they're hanging out with other people, or when you work 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours on a drawing that you're selling to someone, you give it to them and they dislike it. Or when you're doing a live scenario drawing caricatures live out at a resort and you work hard to do these different images and then you show them to the person and they say, "This just does not look like my child." There are many different kinds of rejections, and each one is going to put a major hamper on how we feel about our career. When I started drawing caricatures, I remember telling my mother, I remember telling a whole bunch of people around me that I just could not see myself drawing caricatures at theme parks and resorts. And the question would be, why? Well, because I'm scared of the rejection. I don't know how well I would handle the rejection. I don't like rejection. Rejection is not a thing I handle well. I don't like critique. I don't like people looking over my shoulder. I don't like people breathing down my neck. Can you hear all the excuses? I certainly do now. Back then, it was a serious thought, and it makes perfect sense. But when it comes down to it, remember that rejection isn't always because it's your fault. And I'll talk about that in a minute, and you guys have probably heard that a million times in my different podcasts, but it's something that needs to be hammered home. Do not let rejection stop you from reaching your goals. If it was that easy to reach your goal, then guess what? What is the major line that everyone knows? Everyone would be doing it. And that's what makes us different and special. We are prepared to handle rejection when it hits us. And guys, this is where we need to just step out and look at the lion square on in the face and get ready to attack. Because one of two things is going to happen. You're going to fight that lion. You're going to beat the lion down. And you're going to feel good about yourself and even better about yourself when it's all said and done. Or you're going to run the other direction and never even begin to make it to your goal in the first place. And guys, I want to see you succeed. And I remember what I've been through when it was my turn to attempt being a live caricature artist. I remember my first time I got a failure in a sale on my website. Let's first off look at a couple different things. One, maybe you're not quite ready to be this kind of artist yet. Maybe the rejections are real, maybe because you're not quite that skilled. Everyone is telling themselves that, and that's fair. Some people aren't ready yet, and you need to be taking it seriously. Go to professionals around you. Ask them their opinion about your work. And listen to them. Listen to the critiques. That's going to be important. That's going to be key. But remember, you need to go to people that you trust. You need to go to people that you appreciate. And when they tell you, I'm sorry, I don't think you're quite ready yet, do not look at them as if they're looking down on you. This is them giving you an honest opinion of your work. And this does not mean you're not fit to be an artist, never ever come back to me and talk to me about this again. This means get better. There's a line that a friend of mine named Chris uses all the time, and he says, get better. And it becomes a running joke in our little family when we're talking about something. You didn't take out the garbage today? Get better, or whatever. And just remember, guys, this is not a point when someone goes, ugh, I hate this. That shouldn't be you then stomping away going, well, I'm never doing this again. Never, ever, ever. No, this is your chance to step out and say, okay, I can learn from this and I can get better. So remember to take that critique not as someone saying, wow, this is terrible, but there are areas that you can be better at what you do. Let me also offer some advice to the people who are actually doing the critiquing. And this is my personal understanding and study of how the human psyche kind of works. And my best advice that I would give is if you are the person giving critique, remember that one word of critique will overpower 20 different words of kindness. So if you walk up to me and you show me your drawing, I don't want to immediately take your drawing and going, here's where your problem is. Because you're going to walk away from that feeling very negative about yourself. And because I've only mentioned the negatives. Think about the family discussions you may have had with your kids or with your parents, and they talk about the negatives, and then the discussion's over. You feel pretty beat up, don't you? It doesn't feel good. Remember that if you are someone offering critique on someone else's work, you cannot just stop on the negatives. If you want to really truly encourage someone to keep pushing forward, you need to understand that your words have weight. So here's my advice. When you are giving critique to someone, do not stop at the negatives. And I would say, put the negative out first, then mention the positives, and then throw out the negative one more time. Let me give you a for instance. If I got a drawing from you, I would say, okay, let's see what you got here. This is very nice. Now, I do have some suggestions, but this is a good start. This is a really good start. You see this right here, this right here, this right here. I would suggest you do this with these. Now, let's talk about the rest of this. See how you drew this eye? This looks awesome. I love the eye. I love the mouth. I love how you did the nose. I love how you did the contours of the face. I love this, and this. Get some positives in there. And then say, now, I've said all that, but remember these things. But trust me, you're doing good. You're getting somewhere. Just keep going. You're doing great. And put your smile on your face. Show them that you're there to lead them and not there to put them down. That way they feel that they can come back to you and discuss these things with you again. Don't be the guy who says, okay, this needs to be drawn like this. This needs to be drawn like this. This needs to be drawn like this. There you go. Everyone does that, but remember that this is going to affect another person's career, another person's future. You are affecting the next Da Vinci. You're affecting the next Monet. You're affecting the next, just think of every name out there in the comic world or in the Disney world or in any of those. You are helping create new artists that are going to change the way things are done. And if you can look at it like that, then you really are blessed to be someone offering critique on someone else's work. That's really cool. That they come to you and that they trust you enough to look at their work and go, okay, what do you think? You're obviously a better artist than I. What do you think I should do differently? That's a blessing, and that is something you should take some pride in. But obviously don't become too proud in it. So just recently, I was out at one of the resorts. And, I won't say just recently. I'll say last night. And last night I was out at the resorts and I was doing a couple drawings. Had someone come up who asked for 3 faces on 1 piece of paper. That's not a problem. I can totally do that. And I drew up 2 faces that looked really good. And then the 3rd face, I was handed the person's phone. And I was asked to draw the face from a phone. Well, many different things can happen. You just went from drawing 3D people to going to a 2D picture, and you're supposed to make this person look just as 3D as you've done with everyone else. So I'm sitting here and I'm doing the drawing, and I finish it, and I realize, without a shadow of a doubt, I have messed up on a likeness. I have messed up. And I knew what was going to happen next. The mother got up, looked at my art, and immediately rejected it. And it did not surprise me at all. That happens. What do you expect? This person's going to pay a certain amount of money, and they're expecting quality. And sometimes that's not going to happen. Now, the thing that really did happen is I exaggerated some areas that would be okay to exaggerate in a 3D form. But in a 2D form, looking at this 2D structure, I over-exaggerated and overcompensated, and in the final result, the likeness was off. So, now what do you do? Whether it was your mistake or not your mistake, I admit this time it was my mistake. You thank them for their time, you apologize for, the mistake, and you move on. Do not stop there. After I finished that caricature, I had someone else come up, sit down, and I had the best 30 minutes with drawing their 2 kids. I had everyone laughing. It was a time of comedy. Everyone was hooting and hollering. It was a really great time. If I had chosen to take that rejection and let it sit on my heart and on my soul for the rest of the night, I would have been very affected, and that would have messed up my artwork for the rest of the night. Just remember, you have a chance in an absolute instant, to change someone else's life. And when it comes down to it, I remember so many people telling me after the fact, you know what, we've hung out at these theme parks all day long, but this moment with you, sitting in these chairs, listening to you make jokes, watching you do these drawings, this is what we're going to remember the most about being out at the theme parks. How cool is that, right? So if you're going to let rejection pull you away from the opportunity of the next person who sits down telling you something like that, you have wasted your energy and your time, and you've lost something so absolutely beautiful. I've just started drawing live more recently again, trying to get in a couple more shifts, get in some more spending money, get some more devices for my little business. And I came home one night and I sat down with my wife and I said, I finally understand why I love drawing live caricatures so much. And she goes, why is that? And I said, I think it's kind of obvious, but I love making people laugh. I love seeing people smiling. I love watching people crack up to my jokes. You know what? When I am sitting here in front of a microphone or talking to people every single day, I try way too hard to make jokes. My brain is constantly trying to find ways to make people laugh, and 9 times out of 10, I'm pushing way too hard to make that happen. But when I'm sitting in front of an easel and I'm drawing caricatures, and I'm sitting in front of a child who's attempting to smile at me to such an extent that their cheeks are sore, and they're just trying to push through this so they can see their final caricature, it's such a wonderful thing to say, hey, look, what are you smiling for? Calm down. And just chatting with them one-on-one. Say, how are you liking the theme parks? How are you liking hanging out? What do you like to do? And I had a kid last night who said, well, let me see one of your drawings. So I handed him a little caricature I drew that night, and they started laughing really hard at it. And it was just a caricature of myself. You draw yourself a couple times to see if you can get people interested in coming up to you. If you can draw a good likeness of yourself, then you can draw a good likeness of them, hopefully, And, you're trying to inspire people to come up and buy caricatures from you. And they started laughing really hard at the caricature. And so I looked at them and I said, hey, whoa, you don't have to laugh that hard at it. And in a moment like this, when I'm telling you over the camera, over the microphone, it's not that funny. But in that moment in time, their parents started hooting and hollering, and I mean heavy-duty laughing at that. And the whole rest of the time that I was spending with them drawing their kids, it was nothing but fun and nothing but just having a really good time. And if you can do that, you leave a wonderful taste in their mouth, so that when they come back, the first thing they're going to want to do is get a caricature again. And that's going to be a really cool thing that you can do for someone else. I've heard a lot of stories where, yeah, we had a caricature drawn, but I didn't like how it turned out, and it's just, you know, it's kind of scared me from coming back. But I have my kids here now, and, you know, I really want to get them drawn up, but I really hope you do better than the other guy. You know, and a lot of people will walk around over the next couple days when they're in the theme parks, and they'll literally look at each individual artist. And if they come to you after they say, yeah, we've been looking at a couple different artists, that's because they're coming to you because they like your work more than anybody else's. That's a cool thing to get. The other cool thing about caricatures would be the fact that when someone walks up, and I'm trying to think about it. Someone walks up and looks at your stuff while you're drawing someone else. They say, hey, that looks awesome. Drawing caricatures is not a thankless job. There's a lot of people walking behind you who are laughing, who are coming up. And I say, I love the hecklers. I love hecklers. Now, that sounds weird, but basically what that means is there are people who walk up to you, look at the artwork, and look at the kid and go, why do you have a mustache? Usually, for some people, they're hurt by that. But really what that means is this is a really good caricature, because they wouldn't say a thing if it was a terrible caricature. But it's a good caricature, and they can see the likeness of the person you're trying to draw. So if you get a heckler, you're doing a good job. You're doing a really good job. If a mom still has a smile on her face, you're doing a good job. If a dad's making jokes, you're doing a good job. Trust me, you know when you're doing it wrong because everyone behind you is dead silent. It's as if they're not there. You know you're doing a really good job when you can smell their body odor after being at the theme parks all day. But I love that side of drawing caricatures, and I cannot let rejection pull me down from that. Something I've said many different times on the podcast, on my YouTube channel, but like I said, something that needs to be hammered home again is it's not always your fault. Last night, in that caricature, was my fault. I could have done better on that likeness. Not like I was doing a minimal job, but more of, yeah, if I had the opportunity to draw it over, I would have, and I would have done a lot better. It's one of those in-the-moment things. You draw the caricature, you look at it after the fact, and you go, that could have been a lot better, you know? And it's not you doing a bad job. It's just your brain processing how to draw the caricatures. But here's the word of advice that I can give you. It's not always your fault. And there was an artist that I used to work with quite often, and he was so much fun to hang out with, and an amazing artist. His name is Kenny Durkin, and Kenny Durkin has done a really awesome job. He's really getting himself places. He's a big fan of the Muppets. So if you look at a lot of his stuff, he draws a lot of Muppets. But he walked up to me one day, and he said, Tim, you need to understand one thing. If you're scared of rejection, it's a mathematical fact that you're going to get rejected. If you can understand it in that sense, it makes it a whole lot easier. And he explained it to me. He said, you are drawing so many caricatures every single day out at the theme parks. You're drawing literally 10 caricatures a day. How many caricatures do you expect that you're going to draw, until someone rejects it? You're going to draw 1,000 caricatures and expect them all to be perfect? No, something's going to go wrong. And you have to understand that people have different brains. That's what makes this world so exciting and different, because everyone has a different viewpoint. And when it comes down to it, a mom is going to look at her child a lot different than you're going to look at that child. A dad's going to look a lot different at that dog that belongs to them than you're going to look at that dog. We draw a lot of pet caricatures too, believe it or not. And when it comes down to it, it's not always your fault. Sometimes you draw a great caricature, you'll have people who are watching going, oh my goodness, it looks just like them. And then you'll have mom standing over in the corner going, I don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't look like my child. When everyone else that's there with you is going, yeah, this is definitely a caricature, of the child. It looks like them. It feels like them. I feel their essence and their spirit in it, but that's not always going to happen. When you look at it like that, it makes rejection a whole lot easier to handle. Think of it as a mathematical fact. How many years do you expect you're going to drive down the road and be a perfect driver? And then how long is it going to take till you realize, yeah, but someone else could cross in front of you and either get you into a wreck or make you feel like you could have been in a wreck? It's kind of a mathematical fact that while you're driving down the road, some idiot's going to do something and pull out in front of you, especially in Florida, in such a way, in such a shape and form, that it's going to make you feel like you were nearly in a wreck. It's a mathematical fact. It's going to happen. If you drive every day, it's going to happen. Not that it's your fault. It wasn't your fault. You didn't pull in front of them or anything. Does that make sense, guys? Does that give you any thought? Rejection isn't always your fault. I say it all the time, but I mean it. Walk away from it. Sit down. Get ready to draw someone else who's going to have a whole different input than someone else. Let me tell you, I've drawn some people who are absolutely crazy. I mean, beyond picky. And a lot of people who sit down for caricatures are expecting far more than a caricature. They're expecting a portrait. People don't understand that caricatures and portraits are two different things. And when it comes down to that, then you have to tell them before they sit down, hey guys, remember, this is not a portrait. This is not, if you want a portrait, take a picture of your kid with a camera, What we do here is we make them funny. You see that big nose? It's going to turn into Bobo the Clown, okay? You get what I'm saying? That's what a caricature is. We're going to have fun. And if you do not have fun while I'm drawing you, then I have failed you. Because it's so much more than just drawing the caricature. It's all about getting people to laugh, having a good time, and giving them something that they're never going to forget. And I can tell you that many of the caricatures that I've drawn, only half of the fun is doing the artwork. The other half is hearing people's stories, hearing where they come from, and connecting with them, understanding them, and really starting to learn about them. And when you learn about them, then you can draw their kid differently because you can get an instinct of what they feel about their kid. Oh, my kid is absolutely crazy. He was on a bicycle and he went down some kind of ramp, smashed his nose clean into something. Then you can get a feeling of them that lets you know how far you can take things. Oh yeah, my daughter, well, she's quiet and she's, she likes to do little simple things, and she doesn't want to hurt people, you don't want to mess with that. You want to draw it properly and make sure that you're careful. Where the kid who smashed his nose into something and their parents think it's so hilarious that they're totally okay with spilling their guts about this situation, that's the person that you get to have fun with. If you can understand that and you can learn that, and I don't expect you to learn it in the first day, the rejections aren't that big a deal. They'll hit you, and sometimes they'll hurt you in a negative way where it will mess up the rest of your night. But if you can understand, the next person that sits down does not need to have that. Don't let the person before them affect the person that you're drawing now. Because you could be having so much fun with this person, and the other person's just a namby-pamby. Let them walk away. Who cares? Give the person next an opportunity to brighten your day after that. I mean, like I said, a lot of positives are required to make up for a negative comment. A lot of positives are required to make up for a negative. Think about the day that you've had where the whole day went really great. And then you came home and you had a discussion with your wife, with your mom or dad, with some person, some friend, some text message you read wrong. Your phone died and your girlfriend's wondering why you haven't texted her back and sent you a million texts wondering where on earth you are. Why are you hanging out with someone else? Think of all those different things that suddenly take your whole day, which was really great, and just really spoil it. And you go home and you go to bed angry and frustrated and you don't get it. And the person next to you is going, why do you seem so down? A lot of negatives Well, one negative is really hard to overpower with a lot of positives. But if you can have the mindset of the cup being half full instead of half empty, and understand that it's not your fault, then you can have success in the world of art. And that would be my advice. So the constant repeating of this exact same statement, that it's not always your fault, needs to be something that is ingrained in your head. And that's not just for caricatures. That's not just for music. That's not just for improper programming of a computer. That's not just for serving food at a McDonald's. It's every single instinct in life that you need to understand. That it's not always your fault. And when it is, own up to it and move on. And do not let it keep affecting your day. Usually something frustrating lasts me about 45 seconds, then I'm good. Usually. Sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. If you can have that mindset where it's something you're going to push past and life goes on, then you're going to have success. All right, guys, so thanks for listening to me rant about that for 30 some odd minutes, and I hope it helps. I know I talked about this on my live stream the other day, and someone mentioned that it needs to be put on a loop and repeated to every artist, I can't do that, but one thing I can do is encourage you guys to not let these things get you down. You are an amazing artist, and if you don't feel you are growing, and you're getting better. There are people in this world who draw worse than you do, I promise you. That's a guarantee. That's a mathematical fact. Just keep practicing, keep pushing. You're going to have success if you continue to put that as a priority. I mean it. I mean it. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know what you do for fun. But your priorities, they're the things that are going to change your life and how you live it. So if you want to be an amazing artist, you need to make the choice now to focus on that and push. If you want to be a good father, a good husband, a good wife, a good mother, if you want to focus on those things, those need to be your priorities. Make sure that you have the right priorities. Art can wait. Art can wait. Other things are more important. But when all those things are done and the art is next in line, you put your focus on it. And prove to everyone, especially prove to yourself, that you can handle rejection, that you can push through, and with that, you can succeed. I'll give you one more story, and then I'll let you go. When I was a little younger, I used to draw a lot of anime and manga. And I was decent at it, and I was known for it. I was out there a little bit doing some basic stuff. I didn't think I was good enough. But my dad and my mom saw potential. And they have a family friend. His name is Tom Allen. He creates the Friendly Critter calendars. I invite you guys to look that up. They are adorable. We have a calendar here in our house that's for the Friendly Critters calendar. Tom Allen is an amazing artist, very gifted, and he takes care of his family off of the finances that he does making these calendars. That's what he does. And he has profited greatly from it. He is an amazing success story. And my dad asked him if he could come over to our house and sit down with me. And at that time, I was probably only 12, 13, 14 years old. Get out all of my artwork and look through it. And tell me what I'm doing wrong. Needless to say, like I said, I'm not a big fan of rejection. I hate critique like no one's business. And here was this guy who is a big name doing this stuff, coming to tell me what I do wrong in my artwork. That's tough. That scared me. He came over. He was wonderful. He always gave positive input. But there was one piece of negative input that he told me that has affected me for the rest of my life. He says, Tim, if you want to succeed, you gotta stop drawing this anime stuff, man. And he said, anime is a fad. It's out there, and it's popular, and everyone's drawing it, but that's exactly the point. Everyone's drawing it. What makes you any different than everybody else? How are you going to succeed any better than anyone else? in this if you're going to draw exactly the same as everyone else does. Now, there's a lot of different viewpoints on anime, and anime has its place, and anime has some cool stuff. But when it comes down to it, anime is an art form that a lot of people like, and it's loved by many audiences. But when it comes down to it, it's one that stops at a certain point and doesn't really get much further. Sometimes you can't tell certain artists apart because their anime looks an awful lot alike. Should I say manga? Anime is the animated version of manga. But 90% of the artwork that I was drawing at that time when Tom Allen looked at my work was manga. So he was literally putting down in a negative way 90% of everything I did. That's really hard. And I had to consider that with a grain of salt. And one day I tried it. I got away from anime and I started doing my own stuff. And I've been doing it ever since. And I feel like I've succeeded because of that. That one negative comment that I know if I had the choice I would not want to hear it is one of the most important pieces of information that goes through my head that has changed my life and how I draw. That's something that needs to be a main focus. So allow the negatives to push you forward. Don't take them as negatives because it was just a nice piece of advice from a teacher. And I will always look up to him for talking to that young guy and telling him to get away from it. So, all right, that's the final story for you guys. We'll go ahead and get into segment 4. I hope that you've enjoyed that. Remember, if you're listening via YouTube, hit the like button for me. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the description below. And, of course, if you want to talk about anything artistic, if you have any questions for me that we can make as part of a conversation together, put them in the description. And if you're listening via iTunes or Stitcher, remember that you can leave your comments on our Facebook, facebook.com/Artisan Central Podcast, and of course, facebook.com/Tim Michael Arts. I'll get them all, and I'll be happy to answer questions if I can, and if not, we'll talk about it. And thank you very much for listening, guys. Let's get into our last segment and call it a night. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Artisan Central podcast and myself on my soapbox continually for this whole show. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, even though it's been a bit more simple today. I love talking with you guys. I love getting your comments. So like I said before, make sure that you leave comments on youtube.com/Tim Michael Arts, youtube.com/Artisan Central Podcast, facebook.com/Tim Michael Arts, and facebook.com/Artisan Central Podcast. You can find us all over the place. Just look up either Tim Michael Arts or Artisan Central Podcast, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. And yes, if you are listening via YouTube, hit the like button for me. And we will be back next week with even more. And remember, the midweek show, which is the Behind the Easel, where I talk about whatever I want to talk about, whenever I want to talk about it, usually goes out on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the week. And if it doesn't, then of course you can always rely on the Artisan Central Podcast on the weekends, and we'll let you know if that changes at some certain point in time. All right, God bless you all. We'll see you next time right here on the ACP, or the Artisan Central Podcast. My name is Tim Michael, and I'll see you guys next time. God bless. Later on.